So for this installment of the Marks Group Crystal Reports Tips and Tricks webinar, we're going to be kind of looking at groups in general. Looking at the group tree, and I'm going to show you what I like to do whenever I'm using a group. I like to actually group on a formula, and that allows me a little more flexibility because certainly if you've been designing and developing reports for a long time, then you undoubtedly know that management always wants something a little different or a little more down the road. So I've learned to actually design my reports with that in mind. So I'm going to show you a neat trick where we can actually group on a formula instead of an explicit database value. I'm also going to show you how to display the multiple elements out of a multiple value parameter. A multiple value parameter being an extremely nice way to present the end user with the ability to create a list, which then helps you create your selection criteria. However, when you use that multiple element parameter type, what you then end up with is the inability or non-ability to actually easily list those elements. I'm going to show you how to get around that. And also, speaking of multi-element parameters, we're going to look at what is a ranged parameter, specifically a date range, and how to get out the starting and the ending values of that range. Because again, we want the end users to have really easy to use parameters that are spoon-fed to them. But on the other side of that coin, we need to be able to display them on the report just for clarity's sake. So let's talk about groups. What I have right here is a very, very simple report. I'm just displaying things out of a gold mine contact table, being the contact one table in gold mine. I have a company, a contact, a state, and a create on date. So when I go to preview that, it kind of looks as you would expect it to. I can see here that my date field does not seem to be carrying a time precision. So I'm going to actually change the format on that. That's easy enough. I right click, select format field. Because it's a date type, Crystal's prompting me for date types. I'm a big fan of this guy right here. It kind of makes it look a lot better, and you notice that now I can actually squeeze up my field object here because real estate is always at a premium on any Crystal report. So let's imagine we need to group my database records by the create on date. We want to do something with the create on date, whether we want to figure out who was created last year or this year or in the last 7 days or what have you. So what we want to do then is start aggregating some values, and before we can start aggregating values, we need to provide a group. Now, to provide a group with Crystal, we're going to go to Insert, Group, and then we just select the database value we'd like the group to be. And in this case, I want to group on Create On, and hit OK. And when I do that, I get a group header and a group footer, and then what I get is, you'll see here in bold, and I actually like to make my group headers a little bigger than the rest of the kids on the block here. Maybe underline too. So we can see here that it's breaking out my report. It's grouping the report together by unique values from that create on date. Now, this is actually not usually how the group functionality is used, because, well, unless we're keeping track of specific days. What I did want to show you is that what you're going to end up with is this group tree on the left hand side. And the group tree is really handy because now that I have groups, I can actually right click on any of these items and I can drill down, and you'll see what that has done is that's given me its own separate tab, in this case for the 4/8/2010 group. And I can go ahead and repeat that for any group I want. So I can actually drill those out. I prefer to say drilling out. I don't know where drill down came from, to be honest with you. But what's nice about drilling down tabs is that these tabs now, when you go to print them, will only print everything on the current tab. So this is a nice way, especially when using the designer to preview and look at reports, that we're able to actually slice and dice very easily without having to get too complex within the report itself. Let's imagine that instead of breaking the report out by single days, we want to break it out by year. So we want to be able to grab the year out of any given create on date. Okay? So, well, I guess the easiest thing to do would be to insert a formula. And I'll just create a brand new formula underneath my formula fields. You'll see here that when I create formula fields, I prefix them with a lowercase frm. What that allows me to do is that when I have a monster crystal report going on, and I see a big long list of crystal stuff, I know that all of my FRMs are immediately formulas. So again, we want to be able to pick out the year out of that create on date. So I'm just going to say this is going to be the FRM creation year. Now the easiest way to return just the year portion from any date type field is to use the year function. And I can just pass my create on date to the year function thusly. Let me back that up. I'm going to use the year function. I need to open up a paren and then put in the field I want to grab the year from and then close my paren. If I didn't know off the top of my head that there was a year function available, I'd be able to find it here underneath my functions tree and underneath date time. Yeah, there it is, year, right there. And also, we can also use the month function to just grab the month value and correspondingly the day value. So now we have a formula field that is only going to return the year portion of our create on date. I go ahead and I save that. And certainly, whenever I'm creating new formulas, my favorite thing to do is to actually drag my new formula right next to the field that it's operating on and preview the report. And that gives me a sense of immediately if it's a little confused or as to what's going on. So, okay, it seems to be working okay. I'm going to format the numerical formatting here. You see it thinks it's a numerical value. So I'm going to go ahead and go to edit form, or not edit, but format field. And I don't want 1,000 separator. So I just select that. Okay, so that's grabbing the year of my create on date. So now it's a relatively simple thing to go ahead and delete our create on group. So we're going to right click on our section and select delete group. And Crystal wants to make sure that we're sure. Of course we are. So now I'm going to insert another group. And instead of using the create on date, which again you recall was giving us single dates, we're going to select our new formula, which was the creation year. And again, I'm going to make my group header a little bigger and a little bolder. Oh, and now you'll see that even though I changed the format of this object to not use 1,000 separator, I still have to repeat that right here on my group header. Easy enough. Okay, so now the report is breaking itself out between 2010 and 2011, which happens to be the entirety of my test or development database. So now, and I guess that's easy enough. So now we're grouping on a formula. But what that allows you to do, now that we're grouping on a formula, and keep in mind that formula can be whatever we want it to be. I actually ran into this problem once where I had this exact same kind of scenario where I had one year being compared against another year. And my boss came to me and said, well, listen, I want all the records that were added in December of the previous year to actually be a part of 2011. Can you do that? Of course, the easy answer is, wow, no, I really can't, because the date is a date is a date. We can't change the underlying date within the software. Well, we don't want to really do that, but what we can actually do is gear our formula to make that exception. And that is where formulas really excel on a Crystal report, especially when management needs you to make exceptions, and believe me, they will want this someday. You can always code it into a formula. So I'm going to go ahead. I don't even have to worry about deleting or recreating my group. All I have to do is go back here and edit my creation year group. And now we're going to get a little more complex. We're not just going to say that the record should be grouped on the year. we're going to actually delete that. I'm going to use an if. And if you haven't gotten into if, then, else statements in Crystal, boy, oh boy, are you missing out, because this is you. So I'm going to say, if my creation date is greater than 12/01/2010, then tell me it's a 2011 record. Okay? Because again, at this point, because management wants that December exception, we can no longer rely on the create on field to provide us with the year. So we have to evaluate, is it greater than December? And of course, we can just use just the greater than because it's not 2012 yet. If it was, we could actually append this and say, if the create on is greater than December 1st, and anything else. No errors found. Okay. So else we give it the creation year. Let's do that. Let's do it that way. Oh, it can't refer to itself. Okay, so Crystal was complaining a little bit. It didn't want a number because when you return just the year, it's actually returned, now that I recall, as a pure numeric value. And because we can't mix numeric returns and text returns in the same folder or in the same formula, all we have to do is just throw our year function to a toText, which converts pretty much anything to text. So now that we have that working for us, go back to preview, go back to refresh. And now you'll see that our December records are now appearing within our 2011 group. I actually didn't expect it to be so complicated within the formula itself. So let's go back to our creation year. And again, we're making that exception for December records. And because the back end is a text value, we want to convert that to a date with the date time function. We say if it's greater than December, then say it's 2011. Else, give me the text version of the year. So again, all I'm really trying to get you guys turned on to is start grouping by formulas. Even if the formula is going to be like